Hi, Arijita. So I'm sitting with you today,
Mhm.
and so the topic for this today's video is financial empowerment for women. That when did you realize that financial literacy as a woman is important, or have a realization, epiphany of sorts?
I'll be honest with you, it was not an epiphany of sorts. I was put into that situation. And I had actually gone ahead and given it all away to my dad. My dad was doing my financial planning till I was about 30 years, right? Not that I was extremely young and he was doing this for me, but I do remember I used to throw a tantrum to even sign the tax forms over a weekend and say, why are you making me sign these forms? And it was utter nonsense because I didn't really realize the impact of signing those forms or planning for the future. Well, it did happen to me when my father passed away, is when I realized I had not filed for my taxes or planned for my finance for almost a year. Until I got a call from my auditor and said that, he said, hey, what about your tax? We still haven't filed for it. That's when it came up to me that, hey, I don't know anything about this. I had zero knowledge about the whole piece. Traditionally, I think it's more a conditioning in our country where most of us as women are extremely dependent on a male counterpart to take care of our financial decisions. I'm not saying that we are in bad hands. Of course, they have their best interest for us. But that's when I felt completely illiterate from a financial standpoint. Now that's how I went about understanding how do I need to plan for my finances. Did I get it all at one go? Not really. Right? It was hard. Bit by bit, I realized that there were loads of things that one, whether be it a male or a female, you need to realize that you need to be literate about understanding your finances. Well, that's where I began my journey, to be honest.
As a woman myself, I am still in the process of discovery of some of the financial concepts. Right?
Sure.
So, what do you think are some of the essentials when it comes to this planning your finances that we should be as women be aware of? Absolutely.
I think from times immemorial, the one thing that we've always been taught is to save. That we all had piggy bank. We put our coins into it and look at it for the future, save it up to buy something in the future. So that has traditionally become the concept with most of us women, where we first think of how do we save, right? It's good because we're also thinking of what can we spend for in the future. But I think we need to also retrospect on seeing how can we create an abundance mindset. What I mean by that is how well can you plan for your wealth to actually increase, right? How do you do a 2x of it? How do you do a 3x of it? Now that's where there's an appetite of taking risks. Your technology has been such a boon that today's date and time, if you are in any of the private banks, I'm not going to take any of the brand names here, of course, but if you were to go into your app, you can actually do an SIP in less than 20 minutes or an NPS, right? Any of these schemes, you can do it in less than 20 minutes by submitting your docs. Everything's so digitally empowered. The piece that one needs to be clear of is, yes, there is a reading up to do. You need to be aware of high risk and medium cap and low cap, and how long do you want to invest this for, and which one comes under what. So not everything is going to be for saving or tax planning, right? The moment you're financially adept, you're also figuring out, hey, how do you want your money to be acting as a multiplier effect, right? That's something that innately will come with an abundance mindset. Along with an abundance mindset is also risk planning, right? How do you not actually put everything into an SIP or a mutual funds? Because I'm sure we've heard of this in the advert that, there is risk, right? Portion of risk that you have to be aware of. So you have to diversify your funds. You need to see how much do you plan for tax, how much do you want to put it in a saving, like a rain check amount that you put in on the side. How much do you want to look at it for an SIP, mutual funds, NPS, retirement planning? As women, we are conditioned to first be selfless and help others and not take care of ourselves. So this is a call out to all women listening to this, that you need to plan for your retirement. You need to think of pension schemes. You need to think of life insurance, because The other day, you and I were chatting. We actually laughed about having health insurances, but not planning for life insurance. Why? Because even when you go ahead and talk to a male counterpart, they all have life insurances. And they all have nominated their females in the house as their nominees, right? Flip it over and see that even you need to have a life insurance in your name, and you need to have a nomination created as well. Because as much as their lives are important, so are ours. Over and above this, I also feel that it's important for us to look at trading as a concept. I would like to bring about, I have a female friend who trades, who's a daily trader, who actively trades, right? For that, you'll have to do a lot of reading up about the company. So there is an interest one needs to partake if you were to want to have a multiplier effect. It's not just going to happen by putting in an SIP, which is a short term or a long term. This is also about if you were to get actively into trading, you also need to know how the company is performing, how your wealth is going to grow, and have the risk appetite as well.
So it would be right of me to say that there exists a gender gap when it comes to financial literacy. Do you think that?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I don't know if we've see, there's no shame in accepting this. That's the first piece that I like to call out really loud. And if you were to run this exercise in your own firms, at your houses, you'll find that there is a huge gender gap. Let me call this a ceiling effect that we have in our heads, that it is okay not to be illiterate. It's okay for the male counterpart to take precedence in planning our finances and be adept at it, right? I would say that, we first as women need to take ownership and be in acceptance. Yes, there is a gap. It's important that you and I both, or any other woman that we know, is able to take the step towards first being, first to understand that why is it important, why is it relevant, and then fix the piece of what they need to do to fix the gap. I'm a BCom graduate, right? And I did my MBA, and I'm sure we all learned economics, we learned accounting, and all these principles. Can you imagine me being completely aware of most of these concepts? I didn't apply it till I got to 30. Yeah. I have been sitting and thinking it's all right, my father to take care of it. The first year I was still dependent on my brother when I lost my father. How incompetent of me, right? Because we're so used to giving this away to someone else. So the flip side to it, how do we generate interest in understanding this, is first to be in acceptance, and second, figuring out what is it that we want to generate interest in. Is it just tax planning? Because that's where the buck stops for most of us, right? We just want to know, okay, yaar, net amount kitna mil raha hai account mein. But that doesn't stop us from creating wealth. We need to look forward and see what other concepts can be applied to be creating more wealth.
Rupa, you're an entrepreneur, right? You are the CEO. So my evident question is, how do you find a balance in managing the finances of yourself as against that of the business? And are you good at it?
It's a very good question. To be super honest with you, it is hard, because as vigilant that you can get professionally, you can steer course when you're thinking of it personally. The innate quality kicks in of being a little lethargic, not being as literate. But as soon as you're looking at it from a professional financial implication, you're responsible for more lives and more people. Your accountability is higher, your ownership is higher. And when you steer course and look at it personally, it's only for you, right? Because I come from an independent family where everyone's doing well for themselves. So it's more like it's just for me, creating wealth for self. And so that active interest can take a back seat. It's important to diversify your funds. It's important to apply the multiplier effect, whether it is professional or personal. Personally, I think there's a limited amount of funds that probably you're working with. Right? Professionally, you have more scope of like investing in companies as well, right? And you can also look at how do you manage your cash flow. Very similar to your personal. Do you want to keep everything in your bank account as bank balance? Or do you want to actually go ahead and utilize those funds, and you can look at how do you multiply those funds? There are multiple things that you can do even with giving back to society, which happens both professionally as well as personally. The good piece about it, it can you be used for your tax planning under ATG. It gets covered for both the entities, right? And you also feel good about giving back to society. The other piece that I think, which I struggle with quite a bit, is the risk taking appetite kind of takes a little more lower ratio personally, because suddenly you feel that, hey, traditionally, right, we all want money in the bank, emergency funds. So I would strongly advocate start creating these emergency funds, keep that separate, but also plan for how do you go ahead and invest in certain things that you always wanted to do. I know the government's come up with schemes for a lot to do with housing loan interest for certain loan rates. Of course, it's not free for all, and it's not for the villas that you want to purchase at a specific level. But there are rebates that women get. It's very important for you to also be aware of these rebates and also actively take part, right? Because it's not about buying that house alone. You're also giving employment to multiple people. I mean, if you were to think of it that way, you can put your personal funds to better use. Yeah. So personal, professional, if I were to rate myself or rank myself, I think professionally I do a better job. Personally, I'm still learning. Professionally, you get help. You have like a finance head in the company who's always advocating. You've got legal support. You can go back and check an external auditor to come and check your funds. But personally, we fall a little short of all that. If we can apply a similar logic there, go to the auditor, or even go and do an audit of your own personal funds, I think it could be very much in balance, and there could be a balance that I could strike. So I'm still learning. That's how I'd like to put it.
So, Roopa, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Well, I think we still have a long way to go, right? It's, of course, very important for us to find that one balance that we need to, right?
Yeah.
Like, as you very rightly pointed out at the end, that mapping that one thing for yourself goes a long way, right? And especially when you have dabbled in so many things, right? I'm sure the others will also find that at this age and day, we as a women, it's we've come a long way, right? We've achieved so many things.
Correct.
So why does financial literacy still hold us back?
Absolutely.
So with this thought, I would want to close, and thank you so much, Roopa, for doing this with us.
Thank you.